taking Cam Newton at the 4-5 turn really changed a lot of my draft. I'm going to be screaming at wide receiver. I took some chances. I'm happy with the results. I don't mind having Tavon Austin as one of my receivers. I took another rookie later on, Cordell Patterson. We'll see about that, but never can really doubt Christian Ponder passing to him. That should be really a good opportunity for me. But
yeah,
no,
number 3 receiver
I do think
there.
that it'll be a chance that it's worth taking.
Well, I'll say something, Jeff. You saved me because I knew that run on quarterbacks was coming, and I was picking third. You're picking first. It's a long way up and a long way back before you get to go again. And Tavon Austin was the only guy I really would have maybe said, screw it, I'm just going to take whoever's left. I don't care if there's no quarterbacks left. But you took Austin, maybe you picked 2 picks before me. And then I was like, all right, I'm free to take a quarterback. And then Hansen took Andrew Luck, who's my guy, and I had to take Vanilla Ice, who is perfectly good value in round 7. I don't like rooting for him, and I guarantee the first year that I actually draft him, he's going to take it out on me and take revenge and have a big bust season.
He's going to go up full on Stafford on you there, huh?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? That's fine because, what you did, though, is you started the run of quarterbacks. It was like, thank God, it's about time it's happening. Although it didn't go that long. I took Cam Newton at 5-1. And as again, I told you beforehand on the show, really, I'm not going to – if I see sort of really good value in Cam Newton, I'm just going to take it because I just think he's so dynamic. Now, that could blow up in my face. It could be like the first 4 weeks Cam Newton all year instead of the last 12 weeks, but – I really like the value at that spot. It's just, and I didn't like too many of the wide receivers. I got Deshaun Jackson as one of the wide receivers. I messed up on my cross-off list. I thought Vincent Jackson was available. I was frantically searching for him. He wasn't. And so once that happened, I'm kind of like, all right, I'm just going to take the best player on my board, and we'll just see what brings after that. So I'm okay with that.
No, I love Newton there at 5-1. Are you kidding me? That's a great pick.
Yeah.
It's funny that this league is for no money because you're just using the default software as your list. Like if you go to NFFC where it's $100,000 is the grand prize, you're not just going with the software. I mean,
no. What I thought, but what I'm saying is I was using our iPad app. Right?
Oh, you're using okay. You didn't realize.
And I forgot to mark that he was selected, or I just missed that he was selected in the flurry of picks at one point. I was like, I'm going to take Vincent Jackson here. I'm excited about this. Why doesn't anybody like Vincent Jackson? Oh, he's taken in the 3rd round. Never mind.
Yeah, it was too good to be true, and then you ended up wasting time. No, but Newton's a perfectly fine pick. I mean, think about it. Newton at 5-1. I only got Ryan at 7-3. It's not like, the problem with taking Rodgers or Breeze in these leagues is that you get, Rodgers at 112, and someone gets Ryan or Andrew Luck at 7-5, and you're like, the hell, man, that's 6 rounds later. But if you're getting him 2 rounds later, I mean, I can't fault it. I can't fault Funston for taking Aaron Rodgers in round 4. I can't fault you for taking Newton in round 5, even though quarterback is so deep and there's so many, especially in this league because there's only 4 bench spots. I think the format of the league does matter. Really there's going to be tons of QBs on the waiver wire all the time. This is not a league like the NFFC where there's 10 bench spots and it starts to get thin. There's always freely available quarterbacks.
Right.
The other thing I did in deference to this league format was I took Roddy White over Andre Johnson. I might have taken Andre Johnson, but injuries kill you in this league. You just don't have room. When you have bye weeks coming up, you just don't have the bench space. So
what do you think about me taking
White's a rock.
Speaking of bench space, we talked about this on the show. What do you think about me taking Justin Blackmon late in the draft? I took him. What did I take him? Really late, actually. I thought it was like 10th round, 11th round, maybe even later than that. I took him at 10-14. Cordell Patterson at 11-1.
Right. Cordarrelle, I think, but
whatever. I'll get it right when it matters.
Because what happens is then people turn in the thing with the name spelled wrong, and it's a pain to correct on the spreadsheet. This is the problem I'm going to have tonight with the top 200. But here's the thing: I actually have I have no problem with taking Blackmon. I was going to take him. You snagged him from me 2 picks ahead of me, but I don't think you're going to be able to keep him. I would have had a chance. He's got 4 games that he's suspended, and with this tiny bench. You better have no injuries, otherwise you're going to drop him. And there's no big deal about dropping him because you got him in the 10th, 11th round. Who cares? He's just a guy to drop. But you're almost certainly going to drop him, given how injury-prone your team is. Whereas my team is a little more durable, so I had a chance to be able to hold on to him.
Yeah, you're just so arrogant about that. That's
what do you mean? You have Darren McFadden, DeMarco Murray. What do you mean? I'm not arrogant about it. I'm telling you,
running backs by their very nature are injury-prone. They're not. Okay. They're not injured right now. Neither of them are injured right now.
So let's make a little side bet here. Okay. I'll take, Doug Martin, and you take Darren McFadden, and we'll just bet who plays more games.
Why do you get a first rounder and I get 23 picks later, 26 picks later?
The fact that one's a first rounder is not because of It's not because he's going to produce more.
No. Who's your second running back? Let's compare it to your second running back.
Lamar Miller,
who's already had some injuries. Had some injuries last year. Who's your third running back?
Ahmad Bradshaw.
Okay.
Yeah, he gets hurt a lot, but he's my third running back. I mean, come on.
And these are my second and third running backs too. I have Peterson.
Oh, right. That's true. Maybe that's not so bad. But what I'm just saying is they're not all created equal. I mean, I agree with your point about McFadden's healthy now. He's 25 years old. He's got tons of skills. But, I mean, we said that last year, and of course he got hurt.
Yeah, I know. But I also think that he would have gone higher than 28 overall last year.
He did. He went in the first round in some cases.
Right.
You definitely got the proper discount. The other problem is he was bad last year. They tried to put him into some sort of zone blocking scheme, and that's not his style. He's just kind of a straight ahead. I don't know about the X's and O's of run blocking, but there's certain guys like an Alfred Morris or an Aaron Foster who's suited to that scheme, and McFadden apparently is not. So they're shifting it back to his strength, which should be good. But I mean, I don't see how you could say that all running backs are created equal health-wise.
They're not created equal, but I'm also saying that the prone label is also overused.
In many cases, but I mean, if anyone ever earned it,
he's in his fourth year in the league. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just
fifth year, right?
He's 25, so whatever.
Anyway, he's got injured every year. I mean, it's not like it's only. I understand. Like Stafford missed significant time his first 2 years, and now he hasn't missed a game since. So is he injury prone or was he unlucky? But McFadden, I mean, I don't know. I think he's one of the, if he's just unlucky, then there's no such thing as injury prone.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Right.
There were some interesting other picks in this draft. Not really, there were individual picks, not the trends itself. Just surprised me some of the individual picks. First round of the draft. Look at the 114-2-1. Steven Jackson, Frank Gore. That's higher than we've seen him go really anywhere.
I mean, yeah, that is Brad Evans quipped, great backfield for 2005.
Right.
And I don't know that career carries was a category in this league. I mean, Steven Jackson, 2,400 career carries. Frank Gore, I don't know the exact number, but it's got to be around 2,000. And these guys are not going to be good 2 years from now. They may not be good next year. I mean, when this cliff is coming, and it's the New England Patriots philosophy. Let's get rid of the guy a year too early rather than a year too late. I would be shocked if both of those guys hold up. I think probably the odds are that one of them will hold up. But then again, Gore's going to have a lighter workload. He doesn't need to get 300 carries. He can get 220. And the line is good, and they've managed his workload lately, and he was healthy last year. So I don't know. I agree. That seems a bit early, especially because Gore didn't catch any passes the last year or two.
Yeah, exactly. And we can probably make a case for both. I mean, San Francisco, maybe they're full season with Kaepernick at quarterback. Gore is going to see these wide open truck lanes to run through, and maybe because he's got those wide lanes, he won't get hit as hard. I don't know, something like that. Steven Jackson going to get all those touchdown runs with the Falcons, but we even saw in this league Michael Turner with a 10 touchdown season not have that good of a year. So yeah, and I'm totally stealing Andy Barron's point, by the way. Was it your point or Andy Barron's point in the show today when we talked about Steven Jackson?
What about it?
That you can have a bad year in this format even when you score 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was Barron's. He said it's hard to have a bad year when you score 10 touchdowns, and he said, but then again, Michael Turner did.
Right.
But we were talking about Aaron Foster there, and Aaron Foster is like a lock to score double-digit touchdowns if he even plays like 14 games. And I wasn't saying Foster would have a terrible year, but I preferred Doug Martin, C.J. Spiller to him. So what do you think about, is Doug Martin the no-brainer at 3, or should I have still taken Spiller? I thought I was getting Spiller because Hansen loves Doug Martin, and the only reason he didn't get him was because he got locked out, and his buddy, Joe Dolan had to pick for him and took Foster.
Well, yeah, actually, it auto-picked to Foster.
Auto-picked. Okay.
Yeah. And then he came back like 2 picks after that. No, I would have taken Martin your spot too. I thought I was gonna say you kind of got a windfall there, unless you just feel strongly about Spiller. Take who you want. I mean, either way, you're getting the guy you want.
Yeah. No, Martin is actually our number 1 on the site in PPR, even over Peterson. Now, the .75 PPR, I haven't worked out the numbers, probably closer. But I don't even know why. 0.75. I don't know what the point of that is. But whatever, that's the rules. You got to adapt to the rules. And so I still think Martin, it's just the thing I really like about Martin. He's
looks like we got a little freeze there with Chris Liss. We'll get him back in here in a second. But Michael, I think you're back on board with us now.
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear only one of you. I like it.
Yeah,
actually,
perfect.
you were fine. It was actually when we were talking, and when you were talking, there was only one of you. But when we were talking, there was an echo, and so I think we got that all ironed out.
Who's a Pro Bowl level guy. So you know, I feel pretty good about Martin. I don't really think there's a lot of fleas with him.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I definitely agree with you on that. Michael, what are your thoughts here? Mike, Chris had the choice between.
But overall, the growth comes in running backs, especially from year 1 to year 2. And going into year 2, you can definitely see Doug Martin taking the next step. I like what Tampa Bay is doing as far as featuring him all the time. They do have another piece there in Vincent Jackson, and Mike Williams too, especially in the red zone, that have shown that they are competent, so that they don't just load up 8, 9, 10 guys in the box. So Doug Martin is the guy that I would take. Furthermore, C.J. Spiller, those smaller, faster guys, and especially small in terms of bulk. I just see many more possibilities for injury and just for an injury concern with C.J. Spiller. Furthermore, Buffalo is going to be down in a lot of games, and they're going to be down early. So they're going to need to count on him more maybe in receiving in PPR leagues. So if it's a non-PPR league, I surely go Doug Martin over C.J. Spiller. And even in PPR leagues, I think the edge is not as big, but it's certainly there, and I would certainly feel more comfortable drafting Doug Martin first.
All right. So you're validated, Chris. There you go.
I'll say something about though the idea that the smaller backs get hurt more. I'm not sure that's true. Certainly in the NFL they seem to think that. They seem to baby smaller backs. Tiki Barber didn't get a full load of carries till about his 4th or 5th year in the league. You know, Warwick Dunn was considered sort of a change of pace guy for a long time. Maurice Jones-Drew was splitting carries for a couple of years with Fred Taylor. The smaller guys, they don't get. You know, Ray Rice wasn't even getting full-time carries. Willis McGahee was splitting carries with him for a few years. But in the end, it's Maurice Jones-Drew and Ray Rice and these guys that, you know, end up being durable. I know Maurice Jones-Drew got hurt last year, but for the most part he's been pretty durable. And then you have guys like Emmitt Smith and Curtis Martin, who were 5'10", 205 pounds, you know, among the all-time leaders in carries. Barry Sanders was small. And I think these kind of short, compact guys sometimes hold up better. And same with Chris Johnson. He's kind of skinnier, taller and skinnier, but, you know, he's held up really well. I think a lot of it is the guys with the more violent bruising styles. You know, it looks good, you know, in the short term, but they really take a beating. And a lot of those guys, they go down. And I remember Brandon Jacobs. Not only did he do that, but he had so much upper body muscle and weight on his, you know, on his legs that, you know, he's carrying so much more weight. So when he gets hit, when he plants and gets hit, you know, it's also carrying an extra 40 or 50 pounds that these other guys aren't carrying. So I don't know. I think sometimes the small guys are safer. Now Spiller hasn't been known for his durability. He's been nicked up a bit, so you know he may be a question mark. But I kind of think, you know, I don't know. I'm a little nervous about Spiller too, but I think just that he's small is not in itself a concern.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's going to be a gulf of, you know, 20 picks between the two. No matter what, if you get either one of them, you should feel pretty happy. But if I was given the choice between the two, especially if it's a non-PPR, I'd be much more comfortable going with Doug Martin. But if it's a PPR, you should feel pretty happy getting either. But I've still given the preference. I'm going to go with Doug Martin. In fact, I have to kind of weigh, you know, how much of a jump between year 1 and year 2 that Martin's going to take, and compare him to possibly if Adrian Peterson slips down a little bit, that difference between 1 and 2. So those are two guys where if I got either one of them, I feel like I got one of the top 2 guys in the draft. So I'm pretty high on Doug Martin. So it's more that I really like Doug Martin more than I don't like C.J. Spiller. I think both are good, but given the choice, I'm still going to go Doug Martin every time.
Okay, very good. Jordy Nelson slipped in this draft a little bit, Chris. I looked at. I was hoping I was going to get him actually at one point because I was wide receiver 4. I think he fell all the way into the 6th round, like halfway. Yeah, Andy Barron's got him at 6.7. Was this a guy that you would have taken in this round as well? Did you think this was a good value?
Yes. Had he come back to me, I would definitely have taken Jordy Nelson there. as I said, we don't know that he's going to miss any time at all. There is a chance that this is just we had Greg Ambrosius on today on the XM show, and Greg's a little worried that maybe he's just kind of injury prone. He got hurt last year. He'd been hurt before. He had one huge year in 2011. But can we count on this guy to stay healthy? We know he's good when he is healthy, but maybe this is sort of an old injury that they cleaned up. Maybe he feels better. And round 6, I think you just got to take the chance. This could be Aaron Rodgers' number 1 guy. And he gets red zone looks, he gets downfield looks, which means he's a guy who scores a lot of touchdowns per target. And they don't have Greg Jennings anymore. James Jones, in my mind, is not a first-tier talent. So I think Nelson would be sort of the number 1 outside guy, with Randall Cobb getting a lot of the short stuff.
Yeah, and just going to the RotoWire player projection page, and just in case if anyone's interested, we do have some free trials going on. Please go to rotowire.com/G+. That's rotowire.com/G and then the word plus. And then you can pick up a 10-day free trial, take a look at our player projections, our rankings, everything we have to offer. You can head on over. And we have Jordy Nelson right now as a 70 receptions, 110 targets guy for a little over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. If you get that in round 6, I think it was round 6 in a 14-team league, that's pretty good. I don't care what the name behind it is. If that's the value that you're getting, that's pretty good in round 6.
It's very good. And just one thing, Mike, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's rotowire.com/GPLUS. You said to spell it out, but I'm an idiot enough that I would, if I heard this, type in the plus symbol and be like, why am I not getting my trial? So rotowire.com. I just need things spelled out super simple. GPLUS. I agree. I mean, if you just put in the number, and that's maybe a good way to look at it. I will say, though, that those numbers are sort of optimistic, and I'll tell you why we do this. It may, I give everybody sort of their reasonably healthy season, and for Jordy Nelson, that's his 14-game season. I dock him a game or two for the injury, but I assume everything goes okay beyond that, and I do that because beyond the existing sort of 1-game injury that he has or 0-game injury, it's very hard to predict who's going to get hurt. Besides McFadden, who you downgrade just generally. Sorry, Jeff, I don't mean to twist the message.
Except if you're Jeff Erickson.
Keep talking, it's all good.
Okay, so pretty much everybody gets their full healthy season for the most part. Hakeem Nicks gets docked. There's a couple guys get docked a little bit, but for the most part, it's optimistic, right? And we know in the reality it's going to be a bloodbath, right? And we know in reality half these guys are going to get hurt, miss time, some of them a lot of time. But I don't project that in, and I know some other sites do, so it's like the league leader has 10 touchdowns. Why? Because everybody gets docked 20% because they could all get hurt. That's no fun. We know the league leader is going to get, in running backs, going to get 14, 15 touchdowns, maybe more. We know for receivers it's going to be 12, 13, pretty much. So I make those projections as if they're healthy, and I said, if they get hurt, they get hurt. You don't need us to tell you, we're not a crystal ball. We're not going to tell you who's going to get hurt and who's not. What we are is, assuming everything goes as planned, here's what these guys should get. So that optimistic, that Nelson projection I believe in if he stays healthy the rest of the year after missing a game or two, or being slow for a game or two. But it's also optimistic. So I would even say it's on the rosier side.
Fair enough. Yeah. So let's say even if you cut it down, even 10% from where you are now, if you get a little over 60 receptions and you get a little under 1,000 yards and you get 6-7 touchdowns, still in round 6 of a 14-team league, that is still pretty good, and 100 targets. And you can't really complain much with that.
Right, and that would be his sort of mean projection. That's not what you might get quite a bit better than that or quite a bit worse, but that's his mean projection. So, as you get to round 6 and 7, a guy like Nelson who could be hurt and get worse, but could also do quite a bit better. You start looking for whoever has the most upside.
Very good. Hey, there was a receiver run that I missed out on the sixth round. Right before you took Josh Gordon in that round, which was a killer for me. There was Nelson in that round. There's a few others, and I ended up with Tavon Austin as the last guy I wanted in that group. T.Y. Hilton went, C.B. Johnson went. This was a rough round for me, actually. I was a little disappointed in this one. Cecil Shorts was another one. Michael Floyd went earlier than all of those guys. It was certainly some interesting names going by there.
I don't see the Michael Floyd pick. I don't. I mean, Mike, tell me what you think. But you got Larry Fitzgerald. It's going to be a target-dominant receiver. You've got a quarterback that may resurrect himself there or may not. The offensive line's still a work in progress. Is there really, Andre Roberts is going to get 80 targets probably at a minimum. Is there room for Michael Floyd?
I'll put it this way. I'd rather have Rob Hausler than Michael Floyd. So, especially with Jeff King getting a little nicked up, the other tight end. So, I would much rather have Rob Hausler because Carson Palmer also tends to like his tight ends too. And we'll see. Obviously, we'll see. But I'm not a big believer in Floyd. I was big on him last year, drafted him in almost every league, got burned, and maybe I'm a little bitter. But Michael Floyd, it could be, he needed a year to progress into the NFL. But, like I said, I'm taking Rob Hausler first.
Maybe I should add Michael Floyd to my last year's Bums article under the "That Guy Killed Me" last year plan.
Absolutely. I don't feel comfortable. I mean, Jeff, I'm sorry, but he's in the DeMarco Murray or the Darren McFadden. He's in my other people's problems list. So if someone else wants to take Michael Floyd on, please go ahead.
And actually, you know what? He was in the article. He was in the article, and so was So was McFadden. So bring it on. It's all good.
Well, no,
hey, these guys come at a discount for a reason.
But Michael Floyd didn't. The other guys did. Or McFadden went at market value. Murray went at a slight discount to you, I think. But Floyd, you didn't take him, but he went early. He went ahead of all these other guys.
That wasn't value. That was a reach up, and that was betting on the come.
Was that Brad Evans?
No, it was from a site that we don't like to mention.
Okay. So I think Michael Floyd, it wasn't his fault. It was Ken Wisenpunt's fault, right? Because Ken Wisenpunt, every time they could punt, they did. And not only did he just do a horrendous job coaching the team, he pretty much announced after they drafted Floyd 13 overall that Andre Roberts was the starter and Floyd was buried. He pretty much just announced that and followed through on it. And then the last day of the year, Floyd had a big game against the Niners, although most of his production was on a Hail Mary that was tipped. So that doesn't really count. But I don't have a knock against Floyd. I think he could be a good NFL receiver. I just don't see how they're going to have enough targets. Unless Larry Fitzgerald gets hurt, I just don't see how there's enough targets to go around.
So just to put some perspective on the whole entire discussion, wide receivers that were drafted after Michael Floyd in this draft, the next pick right after him, Cecil Shorts, who's probably going to get more targets, Jordy Nelson, who we just discussed, T.Y. Hilton was after him, Tavon Austin. Then you head to the next round and you get guys like Golden Tate, Anquan Bolden, and then a guy who I love, especially in PPR formats, is Lance Moore, who now gets the head coach that loves to utilize guys like Lance Moore back in Sean Payton. Drew Brees loves Lance Moore and will target him a lot this year. And those are guys who I feel almost all of them would be much more comfortable for me. And then also a guy like Stevie Johnson, who I value sometimes even in some formats a low number 2 wide receiver, and I don't consider Michael Floyd anywhere in a number 2 wide receiver role. Am I crazy there, or do you guys feel like Michael Floyd at best is a wide receiver 3?
I mean, there's upside if something happens to Fitzgerald. If Fitzgerald's healthy and gets 160 targets, and then Hausler gets 85, and Andre Roberts gets 85, and various fourth receivers and running backs get a bunch, I just don't see the room for Floyd to get enough targets to be good. So I agree with you. I also like Stevie Johnson. He's about 6'2", 205, 210, and he's pretty quick. And he's been playing with some subpar quarterbacking most of his career. They just got a new offensive-minded, up-tempo coach. They're going to call more plays. They're going to move the ball quicker. And they've got a quarterback, if E.J. Manuel does win the job, it looks like he will, that could be a lot better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. And so I think there's some upside for Stevie Johnson.
I'll go one step farther. I'm not even a big fan of the renaissance of the Arizona offense. I don't believe in Carson Palmer. We've discussed this before. Keen master of the soul-killing pick 6 that he is.
Right.
I just don't see one exhibition game against the Packers, against not entirely their strongest defense, a defense that isn't that good to begin with, or at least wasn't last year. I'm not really buying that this is all going to be a great offense. It'll be better than last year, but you still have 6 games against the NFC West, 2 games against Seattle, 2 games against San Francisco, 2 against St. Louis. None of those are layups. I think that there's still going to be a mediocre offense. I like all those wide receivers better than Floyd. Maybe Lance Moore and Floyd are on the same plane, but even then, I think I'd take Lance Moore before him. So, each their own. Some people like to, grab their guy thinking they're not going to get him. If that's the case, there's one other person that liked Floyd enough that would have taken him before it would have come back to him, well, I guess you can make the justification for it. I just don't see it myself.
Yeah, I can't in any way, shape, or form see Michael Floyd being a round 4 guy. Unless it's a 32-team league, I just don't see Michael Floyd as a
if you put enough teams in, anybody can be a 4th-round pick.
Exactly, but that's kind of the way. I can't stress this enough. Michael Floyd is not a number 2 wide receiver at current time. Even if Larry Fitzgerald goes down, I'm still not sure that I would be drafting Michael Floyd very highly. I mean, there's a reason why he's not the clear-cut number 2 now, and that why he's not being featured right now. And I just don't feel comfortable doing that. I would much rather get the guys that were drafted after him, especially guys like Cecil Shorts, who I know is going to get targets, whether or not, and they're going to be throwing a lot because they're going to be losing. The Jaguars are. So you're going to get a lot of targets that way. You're going to get long touchdowns, possibly anything. Many more things that could be better than drafting Michael Floyd.
Yeah, and that's even with Chad Henne, who is the new Steve Berline, or Blaine Gabbert as the quarterback. They're still, I think, better targets. And you really have to dig deeper to get worse than the Jacksonville quarterbacks last year. But Arizona was actually it.
Considerably worse. Arizona made Jacksonville look like the 49ers when it was Young and Montana switching off. I mean, Arizona, Larry Fitzgerald had 164 targets, something like 154 targets, and he averaged 5.1 yards per target. That was less than what C.J. Spiller averaged, or Adrian Peterson, or Jamal Charles averaged carrying the ball. Now that's per target. I mean, receivers need to average. An average receiver gets about, well, there's a difference between possession receivers and downfield receivers, but the average receiver gets about 7.5 to 8 yards per target. When you're at 5, I mean, you are a liability. I mean, when they called Larry Fitzgerald's number last year, it was a disaster. Anybody with 150 targets, even 100 targets, I've never seen them much under 6. 5.1 at 154 targets might have been the most inefficient receiving season in NFL history for Larry Fitzgerald last year. That's how bad. And Larry Fitzgerald is basically a Hall of Famer in his late prime. So that's how bad the Arizona quarterbacking was.
And Arizona is just not a place where I'm expecting a ton of fantasy points outside of Larry Fitzgerald. We talked about it a little bit last week. Are there teams that are black holes for fantasy points? I saw that all 3 of the running backs for Arizona were drafted in the middle of the draft, which means none of them are very good. But it also means that there's not going to be that many fantasy points unless people get injured. Am I going to take that risk today? No, it's a little too early. I'd rather let someone else do that, and I'll try to take more guarantees because there aren't as many. I mean, the injury reports are still a little short. But until someone gets injured, I'm not going to, quote-unquote, stoop down to the Arizona Cardinals offense for my source of fantasy points. I'd much rather try to even grab a guy on New England right now who's not necessarily proven, maybe an Aaron Dobson, before I try to go after someone on Arizona, just because I'm not comfortable drafting an Arizona Cardinal in that offense.
You can't afford to be a snob, though, Mike. You can't treat teams like they're beneath you, because there's uncertainty. I remember the Cleveland Browns in 2007. Nobody thought they were anything, and then Braylon Edwards had 16 touchdowns, and Kellen Winslow had 1,000 yards as a tight end, and Derek Anderson threw for 29 touchdowns in like 14 games. And there's going to be somebody else. It was the Panthers in 2011. It was a wasteland. I mean, even they had Steve Smith, but they were like, who's going to throw in the ball? Cam Newton's a run-first quarterback. They thought he was Vince Young. And he comes out and he ends up being a good passing quarterback too, and Steve Smith has a good year. I don't know. The Jets look like the biggest wasteland in the entire league. If Santonio Holmes out 4 games at least, who knows if he's ever coming back. Stephen Hill, basically this guy's just like an athlete they pulled into a football field that no one knows if he actually can play football. But maybe Geno Smith is good, and maybe he's good right away. And, maybe Chad Henne keeps playing well, and Justin Blackmon comes back, and they've got 2 good receivers, and Maurice Jones-Drew's healthy. And maybe Arizona clicks. I just think the point is you don't want to – it's just you need to be able to envision it. You need to start envisioning possibilities. And when you get to, like, the 3rd receiver on one of those teams, it's tough. But especially when there's an established number 1. I could see anybody on the Jets doing well, because there's nobody established. It's wide open. It's tougher in a team like Arizona where you have such an established guy like Fitzgerald.
I was actually disappointed when I didn't get Stephen Hill in the last round of the draft. I really thought that. No, seriously, because I think there is a lot of upside with him. A former first-round pick. He had that one big signature game in the first game of the year last year. Got hurt. Yeah. Are they gonna find a quarterback that can deliver the ball to him? That's debatable, but I mean, the talent at least is there.
Right. They said that about Demaryius Thomas too. Just an athlete who couldn't catch. Right.
Right.
And then Peyton Manning came along, and suddenly he's like one of the best receivers in the league. So it could happen with Stephen Hill.
Yeah,
Peyton Manning's not walking in that door. Is the only difference.
No, he's not. But if Geno Smith is Russell Wilson, I mean, that's not that far-fetched that he becomes Russell Wilson or Kaepernick or one of those kind of guys.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, I get the point underneath. What I guess I'm trying to say is I don't want to be the guy who's going to try. It's kind of almost like reinventing the wheel. I don't want to try to be. I know there's a very limited percentage that you have to win your leagues, but am I going to be the one that's bold enough to say, yes, Arizona Cardinals, they are the team that's going to be that no one talks about, and I'm going to go heavy on Arizona, not heavy on Arizona Cardinals, but I'm going to draft an Arizona Cardinal early because I know that offense is going to click.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, do you want to take the number 4 receiver on a good offense or the clear number 1 on a bad offense? I mean, that's the choice you're really making here. That you're taking a chance on. Do you want to have Nick Toon or Stephen Hill? That's basically what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, of course, and with the Yahoo friends and family, the friends league that everyone's in. There's other options that I might think about, especially with the second flex. A guy who was drafted actually a little earlier than I thought was in round 12 to someone that we don't really talk about much, but Zach Sudfeld from New England. He's running with the first team now, and he may be that guy that kind of fills in for Gronk when Gronk is not there. So. And with a second flex spot, that might be someone who I may put in instead of, a number 2 or number 3 or a number 2 guy on a terrible offense. I'd rather take that kind of a risk than the other kind of a risk. I'm not saying don't take any risks because you'll never win. I mean, in a 12-team league, you have a little over 8% chance to win your league, or in a 14-team, it's even lower than that, probably something more like a 6% chance. So you got to take some risks somewhere. So,
New England is a weird situation because it's a good offense that's wide open, right? Like, how many good offenses do we not know who the hell is going to get the ball, right? I mean, that's like a very unique situation where it's like, okay, we have Danny Amendola, Gronk, whenever it is that he comes back, could be 6 weeks into the season, and that's it. We know Ridley's going to get some carries. We know Vereen will probably catch some balls, but like for the receiving core, for a team that throws the ball 600 times with an all-time great quarterback, we don't know who's getting the ball. That is extremely rare. It's way more common to have it like the Saints, where we know exactly who's getting the ball, or the Broncos, or the Packers, unless Nelson's hurt, and then all bets are off there. So New England is a weird case where you have these totally unproven guys in a very good offense. That's an odd case, and that is it's worth gambling on Dobson or Sudfeld, perhaps. But there's other cases too where you have a Denarius Moore in Oakland, or I took Rod Streeter because I actually think he's a little more durable and he's big and he's fast. Where it's a crappy offense, but you pretty much know who's going to get the looks.
Yeah, it's a matter of how good. Yeah, as when you're going this deep, you want to get a guy who's going to get some looks just because they'll get the accounting stats of football, if you will. They'll get a couple more receptions, they'll get maybe a couple more yards, but if you want to look for those true breakouts, those true upsides, for me, I'd rather try to see if there was someone on a more established offensive system. If we look at the Jets, Bilal Powell's going to get drafted in almost every league, but a guy like Zach Sudfeld is not, and he's not going to get drafted in every league. And that's kind of and if you were starting a team and you were looking at those athletes, which two would you rather have, or which one would you rather have? I'd much rather have the more athletic tight end at this point than a middle of the road to lower of the road running back that's just serviceable and you can hand him the ball and he may not fumble. That's pretty much, and that's kind of what's going on now with the dearth of running backs. There's just none available, so you're going to take a chance on a guy like Bilal Powell, and you won't take a chance on a guy, who may break out, who may not at another position like tight end or wide receiver.
Running backs are like closers. You just need the job. Because you get the save or you get the touchdown. It's just that you need the job. Now there are some closing situations that are so bad. Remember Baltimore one year? There's nobody worth owning on it. And it happens in football too. The running back situation in Jacksonville once Maurice Jones-Drew went down, or in Oakland once McFadden went down. It was so poor there was basically no one worth owning. But I would say that's the exception, not the rule, even on bad teams.
Yeah, it took an Arizona-level nuclear disaster for really to have no running backs worth anything there last year, at least. But yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Tight ends. I waited till middle rounds. I almost kind of regret taking Gates when I did, and not that I dislike him, but I almost would have rather taken another running back or wide receiver because there's still plentiful tight ends out there. How did you address the position in the draft?
You stole Gates from me, actually. I was going to take 2 picks before. I mean, you stole some guys I didn't really care that much, and it was sort of first you wait on QBs, then you wait on tight ends. If you're not drafting in just that sweet spot where Jimmy Graham makes sense, where you don't have to reach for him and he's the best available, and to me, this league's a little different because they're all the 2 flex, only 2 receivers, but to me, it would be normally after the big six receivers are gone, usually, in most formats. And by the big 6 receivers, just for those of you who don't know, I'm talking about Calvin Johnson, Dez Bryant, A.J. Green, Demaryius Thomas, Julio Jones, and Brandon Marshall. Those are the big 6. And so I'd probably take Graham after those guys are gone, after 1 or 2 of the second-tier running backs are gone. But if you're not in that sweet spot, forget it. Wait forever on tight end. Once you get past the first couple, the difference between number 6 and number 20, I can't tell you. I can't tell you who's better. So I got Coby Fleener. I really like the fact that Dwayne Allen's a little banged up. His old coach, Pep Hamilton, who was the coach of both him and Andrew Luck at Stanford, is the offensive coordinator. And so that really bodes well, I think. And Fleener looks really good in early camp. And he was hurt a lot of last year. And plus, tight ends never do anything the rookie years. They're usually only good in their second year.
And if you look at the draft today, there was a metric ton of tight ends that went after our respective picks. Just in the 9th round alone, we saw after I went Gates, you went Fleener, then we went Jermichael Finley, had Owen Daniels, also had Martellus Bennett, with the Bears. Maybe that might be interesting. Follow that by Brandon Myers from your Giants now in the 10th round. Jordan Cameron went, Rob Hausler. A lot of tight ends go. Tyler Eifert actually went in this round too. That was an interesting snag.
Yeah, what's going on with him, Jeff?
You know what? I look at exactly what he's getting in terms of Dalton liking him a lot in the training camp, the preseason. A.J. Green hasn't been practicing. They've been turning to him a lot. They could be they're trying to emulate that New England thing with going 2 tight ends. He might actually end up with more targets than Gresham. It's possible. Gresham is a good blocker, so you could see a scenario there where Gresham's on the line and Eifert's in the slot.
Yeah, I'm inclined to both Bengals tight ends actually are very interesting to me this year. How they shake out? Are they going to try to emulate what New England does with a lot of 2 tight end sets because it seems to work and it really helps the quarterback out to have 2 really big targets in the middle of the field that can really do something with the ball. So that's something that I'm keeping my eye on as far as how that progresses through camp. I don't want to get too high on Bengals not named A.J. Green because A.J. Green's still going to dominate all those targets as he should. But as far as when you get this deep into the draft, yeah, sure, why not take a chance on a Tyler Eifert? Though the one tight end though that was striking to me as far as how far he has dropped was Brandon Pettigrew from the Lions going after all those guys that you mentioned, and he was. I think he was in round 13 or round 11 in that range even, and I was wondering why you guys think he's falling so far. Yeah, he was at the 12th pick of round 11. So why
look
is
at the
he
yards per
so
target? He's just there. He's just a guy. I mean, yeah, he got a lot of targets before, but I don't think he has any special get deep skills. He's not a big play guy. He loses half the tight end red zone targets. It's Scheffler. I mean,
he's got Calvin Johnson on his team who's going to dominate the targets, and he can't catch. He just cannot catch. I mean, that's it. It's like, dude, you got to catch the ball. I mean, I can't. There's nothing to say about it. It's like you cannot catch. I mean, Jermichael Finley's kind of the same way. You can't drop every other ball that hits you in the hands. You got to catch almost all of them. I mean. You've played football in the park, right, Mike? I mean,
yeah.
It's like someone throws you the ball. I mean, once in a while you'll drop one, but you pretty much catch it. It's just, dude, catch the damn ball. I mean, I even want someone playing on my team in the park who's not going to catch the ball. This is an NFL player. You got to catch the ball.
Yeah, stone hands. Yeah, he definitely has a couple of those. And speaking of tight ends who just can't seem to. Yeah, speaking of Gates, who one of you guys drafted, right? I think Jeff.
Yeah, that was
drafted
me.
him.
Yeah. That
So
was me.
I'm actually in San Diego right now, and you can't tell behind me because I had to close all the shades because all the glare was cutting in. But a guy who I've always liked since they drafted him was with the Chargers drafting Ladarius Green, and last year he didn't do much at all. He got a little banged up. But he's a guy that could return, if Gates goes down. That's a guy who I would have an eye on. It's a little bit of a homer pick as well because I'm very Charger based, but he's a guy who's always impressed as far as his athletic capability and a guy who can catch. So if Gates, it's almost a matter of when he goes down now at this point rather than if. A guy to definitely keep your eye on because John Phillips, who's technically ahead of him on the depth chart, he's going to be a blocking guy. He's really more of a Randy McMichael type than he is an Antonio Gates. But Ladarius Green is a guy really deep leagues or just a guy to put put the watch flag on just in case Gates goes down. It's a guy who's very serviceable.
Hey, Mike, I got a guy like that on the Giants, Adrian Robinson. He's the backup to Brandon Myers. Same thing. They love him, good athlete. You think if he ever got to play, he might be good. We should do a side bet. Ladarius, Adrian Robinson. But it'd have to be a floor. Like someone has to get at least 40 catches for it to count. But I really think there are dudes like that around the league. I think part of it's from New England. I do think that two tight end thing that they did, and maybe Cincinnati is emulating them, the fact that, why is it that you would need two receivers on the field and not two big blocking guys, that you could do more different things with, and it'll also help block during running plays. Why would you need two receivers and one tight end rather than two tight ends and one receiver? There's no reason it should be the case.
Yeah, and if worse comes to worse, you can split one of them out wide and create a matchup nightmare with whoever's trying to guard them. So implementing that every inch of the field needs to be covered by someone who's really athletic on defense. That's not easy to do. So that kind of mentality, if there's a team that's really utilizing the entire field and putting athletes everywhere and making matchups really difficult for the defense, yeah, that's something that I would look for in fantasy as well. If there's a team that's doing that, which is why Philadelphia is so intriguing if they can stay healthy, that's something that you should take advantage of in fantasy. If there's matchup problems for the defense, those guys are going to do very well in real life and in fantasy as well.
Yeah, speaking of the Eagles, what do you think about Deshaun Jackson now in that offense with everybody else dropping like flies? Is he going to go nuts in the Chip Kelly offense, or is this going to be another year where he gets overdrafted and people expect too much from him?
He could be Randall Cobb. He could be Michael Floyd. It's really a matter of which is, by the way, a fourth rounder in some cases. But if he could really be Randall Cobb, the opportunity is there for him to take. It's really more about him than about anything else. Everything has fallen into place for Deshaun Jackson to really break out this year. And if he doesn't, I'm not going to rate him very highly any year going forward at this point. He's going to have they like three quarterbacks. I mean, Matt Barkley has looked good. They love Nick Foles. Mike Vick is Mike Vick. There's no shortage of quarterbacks that can get him the ball in any way, shape, or form. LaShawn McCoy is there as well. Bryce Brown is obviously a threat. Brent Selleck's serviceable. But it's a matter of he needs to take over and really needs to take that vocal leadership that you used to see Terrell Owens do on the Eagles and really just take the bull by the horns and really make that job his.
He needs to call out his quarterback. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah, make him
TO style.
Yeah, exactly. Make him throw up
he's
on the field.
He's my quarterback.
Start some drama in the locker room. No, but I will say something. Deshaun Jackson could be Randall Cobb with more speed, with the home run, in his bag of tricks. I mean, the thing that Randall Cobb doesn't really do that Deshaun Jackson does is he gets behind the defense. And Vic, for all his flaws as a quarterback, does have a big arm. And so if Deshaun Jackson can take handoffs, which he probably will in this offense, if he can, get a lot of targets, he'll also get deep. He can also score touchdowns because he can, score a 60-yarder. The question is, can he stay healthy? And he's not the guy who's going to go up the middle. I mean, he is small. I mean, I think he weighs like 170 pounds. I mean, he's really, really small. And
what?
Yeah, he's like a little kid out there. You know what I mean, in the NFL. So that's the one issue. But he's not only fast, but incredibly quick. And I hope they use him because I like Deshaun Jackson. He's a very, very exciting player.
True or false? Matt Barkley does not start a game this year for the Eagles.
If he does not start, false. I think he will start at least one game.
Interesting. I have no read on this. Let's say Vic goes. I'll say you're right. False too, because I think Vic goes down, misses a few games, and who the hell is Nick Foles? I mean, why would I know he has another year of experience. He was okay under horrible circumstances down the stretch. He wasn't terrible. He did his best under a terrible situation, but I mean, why wouldn't you let Barkley get some reps?
Yeah, and here's my theory on Barkley. If everyone, all the NFL scouts were so high on him 2 years ago, surefire #1 pick, he did not forget how to play football in a year. He's still very good at football, and maybe he partied too much in his senior year. Maybe there was something outside of football that kind of affected his on-the-field play. But if he needs the NFL to get himself focused, no 20-hour practice weeks, he's there all the time, then that's what it takes. I think Matt Barkley has the mental makeup to really succeed in this league, and he has the arm talent to be he may not have the deep ball that Mike Vick does. If chicks dig the long ball in baseball, chicks dig the Mike Vick long touchdown pass to Deshaun Jackson. That can certainly happen. But Matt Barkley could make him more of, let's say, a PPR threat. He may be able to get the ball like Percy Harvin, who may not play this year, but like a Percy Harvin type of receiver where he gets the ball a lot, whether it's on receptions or whether it's rushing the ball. If he's going to return kicks at all this year, that's something that you can really latch onto and you can really like as a fantasy owner. But there's boom or bust here, lots of it.
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end on. We will be back at the usual time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, to do these chats every week. We're going to be posting content all week. Mike is in charge of posting a lot of stuff. He's done a good job with it. And if you want to check out the entire site, we strongly recommend it. rotowire.com/G+, G-P-L-U-S. You can take a free 10-day trial. Appreciate everyone listening, and we'll talk to you next week.